Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett got an email one day. It was an invitation to be on The View, a well-known discussion program on TV. Before she said anything, Jasmine read the email twice. Sean, her assistant, said, "You knew this was coming." Jasmine didn't know what to anticipate. She had done TV interviews previously, but The View was different since it had a bigger audience, harder questions, and a lot more pressure. The show wanted to discuss recent protests, voter suppression, and a viral incident when someone made a terrible comment about Jasmine's hair. Jasmine had a clear memory of that time. It happened during a Texas House hearing when another politician tried to make fun of her. Jasmine, on the other hand, didn't yell. She stood her position, and millions of people had seen that video. She was going to face a new problem. Jasmine made the choice to go on the show. "I'm not here to be quiet or play it safe," she informed her crew. "I'll tell the truth and keep my head high." Her staff was anxious about how messy the show could get, especially with Joy Behar, one of the hosts, who was known for being caustic and harsh at times. But Jasmine was prepared. Jasmine got up early on the morning of the show. She couldn't sleep properly since her mind was racing. She wanted to talk about more than simply Texas. She wanted to talk about how some individuals can't speak freely and how some voices are disregarded or cut off. It was a different kind of fight on TV. Everything at the studio seemed cold and hasty. The staff moved fast and changed their plans. They took Jasmine to a little green room with soft lights and a hard couch. She hardly looked at the folder of notes that was waiting for her. Joy Behar then came to the door with a cup of tea and a smile on her face. She said, excited for the talk today, "You've been in the news a lot." Jasmine got up and shook her hand. "People say you have bite," Joy said with a laugh. "I hope we keep it light," Jasmine said. "We can keep it honest." Joy grinned and went. "Remember who you are," said the admonition that came via Jasmine's phone. "Talk slowly. Take charge of your space." Jasmine felt calm when it was time to go on stage. Her jaw was relaxed, her hands were calm, yet her eyes were alert. There was a lot going on behind the scenes at the studio. Jasmine knew she had less time because several segments of the show that came before it ran lengthy. Jasmine felt the weight of the moment as she stepped onto the stage. The hosts were quite nice to her, but Joy Behar didn't even glance up. The talk began in a nice way. They chatted about Jasmine's life and her views on politics. Then Sunny, one of the hosts, asked about Texas. She wanted to know what was actually going on with the protests and voter suppression. Jasmine talked in a calm yet forceful way. She added that many in Dallas and Fort Worth had to wait in long lines merely to vote. People were calling her and others divisive merely for speaking up. Joy cut her off before she could say anything else. "Some people think that paying attention to race only makes things worse," she remarked. "Aren't you going along with that?" Jasmine said to Joy, "Can I finish my point first?" Some people in the audience mumbled while others clapped. Joy kept going and asked if Jasmine's talk about race was making people fight. Jasmine said in a calm but forceful voice, "I'm not dividing anyone. I'm just being honest about what I've been through." The host sought to get the conversation to focus on solutions, but Joy wasn't finished. She wanted to know if it was genuinely about fairness or just politics. Jasmine emphasized that demanding fair voting rights isn't politics, it's American. The room got more tense. You ask a black woman to talk about racial justice, and then you wonder if she's being too harsh, Jasmine remarked. "Why ask me to come if you don't want to hear what I have to say?" Joy chuckled and said, "Don't be so dramatic." Jasmine remarked, "You call it drama. I call it my true life." The crowd clapped louder. But the room wasn't quiet. Joy kept pushing and wondering if talking too much about race could turn people off. "It's not about race," Jasmine remarked softly. "It's about the truth. You can't make people work together by ignoring the truth." Joy remarked Jasmine was being over the top again. Jasmine didn't say much. She said, "It's a trick to call truth drama. People don't want to deal with unfairness because it's hard. Another host, Sarah, sought to change the subject. She said, "I came here to be honest. This isn't a real chat, it's just acting. If you want me to sugarcoat the facts so it's easier to hear, this isn't a real talk." Joy replied that Jasmine could have been overly pushy. Jasmine said gently, "I'm not aggressive. I understand." The room got tense. You could feel the tension even though no one yelled. After then, Jasmine made a significant choice. She turned to Whoopi Goldberg and said, "Thanks for inviting me, but I don't want to be ignored or silenced." She got up, pulled off her mic, and left the stage. There was no noise in the room. A few individuals clapped, but not everyone. The backstage area was full of stress. Jasmine took her time. She walked away with her head held high, steady, and proud. What happened next? The internet blew up. People all around were talking about how Jasmine got up and left instead of being told to go. She illustrated what it means to tell the truth and not give up. If you want to know what happened next and the whole tale, keep watching because this moment altered everything. Jasmine Crockett stayed cool even after she left the stage. A young producer followed her and softly asked, "Congresswoman, do you want some water?" She held up a bottle and said, "No, thank you," without stopping. She walked into the green room and sat down carefully. She wasn't angry, but she was deep in contemplation, as if she were putting her thoughts in order. Her phone buzzed a lot, but she didn't pay attention to it for long. Things were tense, yet silent on the set again. The staff whispered and hurriedly passed papers back and forth. One producer walked around saying, "I told them she wouldn't play along." Whoopi Goldberg tried to move the show on from Jasmine's leave by discussing about celebrity divorces, but the vibe was odd. The cameras looked good, but the room seemed broken when no one was looking. Jasmine finally looked at her texts. Shonda, her assistant, wrote, "Are you okay? Then you were brilliant, and it's already online." Jasmine knew things would become messy. She didn't think Joy Behar would cut her off so quickly or so harshly. Joy pretended to be interested, but she was really criticizing Jasmine of being reckless. Jasmine gave facts in response, polling sites closing, unfair arrests at protests, and what lawmakers really want. Joy, on the other hand, cut in again and asked Jasmine if she really felt all of this was planned. Jasmine wanted to giggle, but she stayed serious. She said, "Intent is built into the design. It always has been." Joy said a term that Jasmine hated, nuance. People use it a lot to avoid face painful truths. Jasmine has heard it a lot in courtrooms, interviews, and arguments. It's a technique to make injustice seem less important by saying it's hard to understand. Then came the moment that hurt the most. Joy leaned back and stated with a smirk, "You're getting upset. Not passionate, not invested, emotional." It wasn't harsh, it was just casual. But the word emotional has a lot of baggage, especially when it's applied to Black women. It's a method to say that someone is crazy or dangerous. Jasmine didn't respond right away. She waited for Joy to finish and then stated quietly, "Feelings aren't the enemy. Denial is." The attitude in the room changed, not because Jasmine yelled, but because she wouldn't let that word stop her where it was supposed to. There were a lot of interruptions. Joy pushed harder, insisting, "I want to stay here," even when Sarah tried to divert the subject. "I think we're getting somewhere." They weren't striking anything real. They were just going around and around, acting like they were talking. Jasmine stared in the mirror in the green room. Her eyes were still serene and clear. Her phone vibrated again. Shonda called this time. Shonda replied, "You went viral in 7 minutes." Clips are all over the place. There are already subtitles for these. "Are you all right?" "I'll be fine," Jasmine said. There was a pause. "You know this is going to get loud, right?" "I know." Later, Jasmine sat still in a black sedan as it drove across the city. The world outside kept going as if nothing had occurred. Everything felt different inside. She told the vehicle to pull over near a park. She got out, took off her blazer, and walked carefully. She wanted no one to know who she was, and they didn't. She needed a break to catch her breath. She opened her phone while sitting on a bench. There were thousands of videos of her leaving the set. Some people praised her grace. Some people asked why she left. People in the center were the loudest, shouting things like, "I've never seen anyone stay so calm when they were being disrespected, and that wasn't a breakdown, that was strategy." Things were tight back at the studio. Joy said to the producers, "What?" Sonny Hostin, another host, observed, "You kept interrupting her." "I didn't say anything incorrect." Joy said, "I interrupt everyone." But this was different. There was no yelling, just frigid tension. Anna Navarro took a side exit to get out of the dressing room. Whoopi sat still with her lips tight and stared at the floor. This had happened to her too many times before. Julian, a young producer who had been shooting footage off air without knowing it, sat calmly and watched. The clip showed Joy saying, "She comes in swinging and then plays victim when it doesn't go her way. Those 6 seconds caused a lot of trouble." Jasmine's phone rang all night that night. CNN, MSNBC, and other news networks wanted her to come on and talk about her side of the story. "It's bigger now," Shonda told her. Jasmine didn't want to play defense. "People are behind you, even those who don't usually speak up. But how you respond will shape this for years," Shonda remarked. Jasmine got up and instructed the driver, "Drive me to the library. I need to be around actual people." Jasmine didn't cause a big scene at the library. She sat calmly and read with others. A young woman saw her and said, "You didn't say anything wrong," because woman was just angry because you didn't give up. "Sometimes people don't want to talk," Jasmine added with a smile. "They want you to stay where you are." The clip of the hosts off air got out online. Joy's statement spread quickly, which led to more outrage. The official show account posted a vague apology, but a lot of people were still unhappy. They had seen the disdain with their own eyes. Producers and lawyers of the TV network had to meet in an emergency. They spoke about whether or not to ask Jasmine back, say sorry, or just ignore it. Nobody knew for sure. Julian and an editor watched the leaked clip again in an editing room. Julian wanted to know if he would lose his job. The editor responded, "You didn't let it out. You just didn't stop it. You got something real. That's not common." In the meantime, Jasmine ate peacefully at a tiny eatery. Her phone kept buzzing. "They want you back on the show," Shonda remarked. Jasmine shook her head. "I don't want fake apologies or performances. I left because I was tired of being talked over." Shonda let out a sigh. "People say the clip made a big difference." Jasmine grinned a little. "No, it just showed what has been going on. This time, they could see it for themselves." She thanked the waitress and remarked, "My mom watches that show every day. She never hated how they talked over people, but today she said I showed her how to leave with grace." Joy was in her car at the same time. Her publicist said to her, "It's bad. People are going back and watching every interruption over the last 2 years. They say it's a pattern." "I didn't say anything wrong," Joy said. Her spokesperson said maybe people are just finally paying attention. But Joy didn't have control over the major change anymore. The point of no return was arriving, and this time it wasn't up to her to decide what would happen next. When the sun went down behind the Hudson River, Jasmine Crockett's name was all over the place. It was trending in all caps on Twitter and other sites. There were a lot of reaction videos on TikTok. Young people uploaded videos with captions like, "This is how you stay calm in chaos." Instagram was full of photographs of Jasmine unhooking her mic, going off stage, and turning her back to the camera, all of which portrayed a message of courage. People weren't just sharing videos, they were making them mean something. Lawyers, journalists, and critics started to analyze every second and every word. One recording shows Joy Behar rolling her eyes when Jasmine talked about how people were being kept from voting. Another showed how many times Joy cut Jasmine off compared to the other hosts. A media analyst wrote, "Jasmine only spoke for 4 minutes out of 12. Joy talked for more than 6 minutes. You decide." The narrative went beyond just TV. It started a major talk about how women of color are treated when they speak up. "Don't stay silent," or "Don't use the right tone." Filmmaker Ava DuVernay tweeted at 9:14 p.m. "That's a masterclass in self-respect and control. You don't have to soothe black ladies. They owe you the truth." Her tweet earned more than 110,000 likes in less than an hour. Arizona Senator Raquel Torres uploaded a video and remarked, "Not everyone has the guts to leave a room that tries to make them smaller. Jasmine taught us how to do it." By 10 p.m., social media was full of hashtags like #StandWithCrockett and #LetBlackWomenSpeak. Some people began out sarcastic, but fans swiftly put them in their place. Memes and comments circulate quickly. Franklin Dorsey, a conservative commentator renowned for his scathing opinions on woke politics, then gave surprising support. He stopped the session of his podcast and said, "I've been critical of a lot of progressives, but what happened on that show wasn't politics. It was about basic respect. People are blind if they don't see that." Jasmine, on the other hand, sat calmly in her hotel room in the city. Her hair was up and her blazer was hanging well. She looked at a lot of posts, but only liked 2. Her assistant Shonda was busy making interview arrangements. "Tomorrow, they want you on every show, radio, cable, and podcasts." Jasmine grinned and said, "I already spoke. They're paying attention now." "Don't want this to be a show," she said. "It's not about getting a lot of attention. It's about how often this happens when there aren't any cameras around." A teacher named Bree Thomason copied up Jasmine's comment, "Unity without honesty is decoration," and put it on the wall of her classroom that night. She wanted her kids to see what real clarity looks like. Friends in Minneapolis kept watching the clip over and over. One person said she didn't even raise her voice once. That shocked them. People everywhere could identify to Jasmine, not because she's in Congress, but because they've been ignored or shut down when they spoke the truth. But Jasmine didn't want to be praised. She was getting ready for what was next. The next morning, news anchors rushed to clarify the story. It wasn't just about walking out anymore. It was about not lowering your voice to be heard. A guest on Good Morning America observed, "It wasn't the walkout that made it powerful. It was the silence that followed." Nobody stopped her. Dr. Carla Withers said, "What Jasmine did wasn't an exit on NPR's When Civility Means Silence. It was a fix. People talked about it even in schools. Students in Dallas talked about the clip in their civics class. They tell us to be calm and polite," one pupil stated. She did that, but they still said she was emotional. So what do they want? A mother in Phoenix told her daughter, "Sometimes silence means yes." You learn that the hard way. A reading group at a black-owned bookstore in Baltimore called off their intentions to talk about Jasmine's story. "I've been Jasmine in too many rooms," one lady remarked. "Stay calm and get called cold. Speak up and get called too much." She didn't move in any direction. That's the point. The clip wasn't getting weaker, it was getting stronger. Jasmine spent most of the morning talking on the phone with her team. Shonda walked about with her phone to her ear, setting up interviews. Shonda replied, "They want you back on live shows." Jasmine chuckled and said, "Softer space? Tell them that the truth doesn't need to be cushioned." She had made a decision. No victory lap. No interviews that go on forever. One thing was all it took. That afternoon, Jasmine got to a modest community center in Tulsa, Oklahoma. No cameras, no big deal. About 50 people from the area, including teachers, laborers, and students. She stood without a podium and stated, "You saw what happened. I don't need to see that again." I didn't leave because I was upset. I left because I was tired of explaining myself to folks who weren't paying attention. She gazed at her surroundings. You don't have to be quiet to be taken seriously. A woman in the back wiped her eyes. A adolescent nodded. Jasmine stated, "People will always try to control how you speak before they believe what you say. That's how control works. It doesn't just shut you up. It makes you feel bad for speaking." She stopped for a moment before saying, "The real power isn't in proving them wrong. It's not agreeing to their terms." Someone in the crowd filmed that moment. It then propagated online. But in that room, it wasn't about getting a lot of views. It was about feeling free. Jasmine heard a message from a woman she didn't know very well that night in her hotel room. It said, "You didn't walk away. You walked toward your worth. Thanks." Jasmine still had more to accomplish. She put up a video from her hotel room at 9:03 p.m. No script, no changes. Just her, staring directly at the camera. She said, "I wasn't going to say anything tonight, but I've seen the spin. Let me make it clear." She stopped to take a breath. "I didn't leave the view because I was angry. I left because I was fatigued. Getting tired of being asked to speak and then being talked over. I'm sick of people telling me my voice is too loud or too emotional, even when I whisper." She spoke in a calm and steady way. It's expected that we black women keep our voices at the correct level and our faces respectable, but being respectable is frequently simply another method to keep us in line. She leaned closer. "I didn't yell or leave in a huff. I told them I came for a real talk, not to be put down." It was a small video, only around 2 minutes long, but it was really compelling. She finished by saying, "I will always be where truth is welcome, but I won't remain in rooms that tell me to leave pieces of myself at the door. That's not how to be a leader. That's how you do it." She grinned a little and continued, "I didn't get into politics to perform." She posted it and leaned back. There was no music or editing, just the reality. In just a few minutes, her words were everywhere. In schools, meetings, and online conversations, people quoted her. Professionals on LinkedIn talked about how they had been silenced at work. Her message went deeper than a TV show. It affected schools, churches, hospitals, and offices. On CNN that night, one of the panelists said she didn't rave or get back at him. She told the truth and then departed. That takes real strength. Students in a Cincinnati college dorm watched the video over and over again. One of them murmured, "That's the kind of leader I want to work for." A grandmother and her grandchild watched from a living room in San Diego. "You don't have to yell to be heard," she remarked. "Just be honest and clear." Two men calmly observed a shattered tablet in a Mississippi cafe. "She said everything," one of them added. Jasmine eventually got some sleep in her motel room. No watching debates or checking numbers. She switched out the lamp, pulled up the blankets, and went to sleep. Not because the world had changed, but because she had said what she needed to say. The next day, her phone rang. A high school in Akron, Ohio, asked her to talk to graduates on walking away with dignity. Jasmine wasn't just leaving anymore. She was headed towards something that was clearer, louder, and more real than any TV show stage could ever be. 3 weeks later, Jasmine Crockett was on the edge of a small stage in the Booker T. Washington Community Hall in Tulsa. There were folding seats, a wooden podium, and string lights hanging from the ceiling in the room. But it was full, from wall to wall, not with reporters or influencers, but with actual people like parents, high school students, retired teachers, and local organizers. They weren't there to see a show. They were there because they could relate to something in Jasmine's experience. Jasmine wasn't there to push a bill or start a campaign. She wasn't getting an award. Someone invited her to come, someone who viewed her 2-minute video and emailed her office, saying, "Our students need to see what strength looks like when it's quiet." The woman who introduced Jasmine had tears in her eyes when she was done. Congresswoman Crockett told us that we don't have to stay where we aren't respected. Leaving doesn't imply you're giving up. It implies recognizing how much you are worth. She didn't walk into a studio today. She walked into this room with us. The applause wasn't very loud. It was deep, the kind that strikes your chest before you can hear it. Jasmine moved forward. She had on a cobalt blue top and simple shoes. No teleprompter. She just had a little card in her pocket, but she didn't need it. She said into the microphone, "Let me start by saying this. You don't have to explain your humanity to anyone." The room was silent, not out of politeness, but because everyone was paying attention. They asked me to come to a national stage. They said it was a conversation, she went on. But what they wanted was proof. Proof that I would behave, that I would conform, and that I would smile when they kicked me out. She stopped for a moment. I didn't yell. I didn't lose it. I stayed steady. There was a quiet murmur throughout the throng. People nodded. Some folks looked down, thinking about times like those in their own lives. Jasmine said, I've said this before, and I'll say it again. The issue isn't that we talk with feeling. The difficulty is that they feel bad when that emotion doesn't suit the tale they want to convey. She thought about it for a while, then said, I'm not sorry I left. I wasn't walking away from a platform. I was walking toward my own voice. A girl in the second row wiped her tears. Jasmine didn't leave right away after the speech. She stayed to talk to pupils who wanted to know how she stayed so calm. She heard a grandmother talk about how people at church meetings didn't listen to her. She hugged a man who drove 3 hours simply to say, thank you for noticing me. Someone had put Jasmine's words in chalk on the sidewalk outside. Unity without honesty is decoration. Later that night, Jasmine was sitting by herself in a small cafe on the edge of town. She still had her event badge on while she ate scrambled eggs and wheat toast. The waitress knew her, but she didn't say anything until she brought the check. The woman said softly, I saw what you did on TV. Jasmine raised her head. The server cleared her throat. You didn't speak out. You simply went. And you were proud when you went. I want my daughter to be that strong when she grows up. Jasmine didn't have a planned response. She really meant it when she said thank you. People all throughout the country were still fighting about what happened on The View that day. Some people blamed the hosts. Some others said the format of the presentation was to blame. A few people said it was simply TV. But for a lot of people, it wasn't about the segment anymore. It was about what it showed, who gets stopped and who is protected, who can stay entire in public, and what occurs when someone eventually shouts, no more. Jasmine Crockett didn't enter into politics to be famous, but when the time came, she faced it with clarity, control, and conviction. She didn't just leave the studio. She stepped into a deeper form of leadership, one that doesn't want to be understood and won't shrink to fit. She worked hard for her seat, and when it became evident that the seat came with terms, she kept her ground. That is what people will remember more than any headline, soundbite, or trending clip. If this story touched you, sign up for more true tales about real individuals who stand up for themselves in places that aim to make them small. Your voice is important. Don't let anyone cut it short.